Productions.
Things are going to start happening to me now.
I think Tyler is amazing.
And I'm a fan of this show. I've watched several episodes.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Tyler. You stink, Tyler.
Never promise crazy a baby.
Oh, I like that. That's a cool idea.
Are either of you homosexuals?
I go both ways. What do you think?
You mean like flaming or?
No, we're not homosexual, but we are willing to learn.
But I do wonder for others in other cases whether libertarianism today is just an excuse for many on the right to act selfishly.
Look at me. And then some fat asses in Washington started having opinions. The Olympic Committee started having opinions. You bitch, I know you. You started writing your opinions.
And it just makes me wonder, you're dead, bitch. You know, why are you doing this to this poor guy?
I don't care. I'm a libertarian. What I'm getting is...
Did you vote for Joe Jorgensen or Trump?
Who?
Joe Jorgensen? That was the perfect answer. Thank you.
Get it?
Welcome, everybody, to LPR. We've got potentially criminal Sean in the house, Tyler Yonke in the house. We're going to talk about the Rekieta, I can't even say that right. Rekieta question, as Sean always mentions it. And by the way, welcome to all Sean's, the RQ, welcome to all of Sean's followers. I'm a follower of Sean as well, so I am welcome here. Sean, thank you for coming to be with me on a Saturday night.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. Thank you. It's been looking forward to this. And we talked last time and getting back together again.
Right. And you've been doing a lot of great work out there, so I think we could talk a little bit about that as well. But sorry about yesterday, because it was going to be planned yesterday. I'm so busy at work, and I had all these things going, and then my brother-in-law says, come play golf with me. So I put you off for conflicts to go play golf. And
you know what? That sounds like a great plan. How'd you shoot?
83, so it wasn't too bad.
There you go.
That I went into the office and worked all day today just to kind of make up for that. So, you know, we do these kind of things. But tell me about you're following Karen Reed stuff here.
Yes.
The Boston accent, the worst, best. What do you think about that?
It's they have Boston accents, and a lot of these people they're insufferable. But then you have like Karen Reed, and she's got her own, which I've learned is the Falls River accent, which is even worse. Like she figures out a way they ratchet it up another notch. But yeah, the Massachusetts accent is just so obnoxious to me.
Yeah,
I can't. No,
all
of it.
I posted on Twitter just because I like to bother people, and I just said I think the Boston accent perceived 50 IQ points lower. And of course people are coming, you're from California. I'm like, yeah, I'm just making jokes, people. It's okay. The Southern accent, you know, there's everything, you know, we got Douglas Murray, you know, just had a whole debate in his accent. People seem to like, I don't, but you know, teach their own.
Yes, exactly.
All right.
But yeah, the Karen Reed thing is getting very interesting, I think, this time around.
Do you think the defense is doing okay? Do you think the prosecution is doing it? What's kind of your take on it so far?
Well, I mean, they have a better prosecutor this time around. This guy is doing a better job overall. I still don't know how they're going to be able to explain the fact that she hit him with a car, but he clearly didn't get hit with a car. I think that's their biggest problem. But I will say the defense is actually, I think, given what they're doing so far, I think they will get an acquittal. Because they didn't start out going down the road of Karen Reed being framed and there's a massive conspiracy. I think they're going to focus on, all these witnesses are very sketchy and the cops just suck at their job. Therefore, you can't convict. And I think that's a better argument. I think it's a better argument for her. So
I thought the opening for the defense was pretty good.
Oh, yeah. Both times around, both sides have far better openings.
What do you think about, because I'm trying to remember, you know, I've watched some of it and, you know, I got to work. And so I'm trying to recap with you and other people. But sometimes when an attorney, like the defense, hey, Sean, don't die right on stream here. Someone call the paramedics. No, are you okay?
I'm good.
No, but when the defense, like you've probably been there, right? When you're cross-examining and you're going maybe too deep on a little issue, is it really that important? I saw was it Jackson? He was doing that on one of the first days.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember who it was with, but maybe one of the first responders.
Yeah, no, I mean,
there's
there's a couple of them where they've gone after really hard after these EMTs. Although I will say, from watching these EMTs testify, and I don't know if you heard me say this, I'm like, this would be if you are an insurance company and you're insuring the city, these guys that get up and stand like, I kind of did some stuff, but I don't really. God forbid somebody dies in an ambulance and there's a wrongful death lawsuit, and these guys go up there bumbling like idiots. Like, geez.
Yeah. No, that I get it. I get it. Okay, let's talk about our favorite thing here. I'm ready for season 1 of Rekieta to be over.
Yes.
And it's not to be hopefully picked up for a second season. What do you think are the odds? Let's start from the end and then I'll work our way back, which is this 5 years probation. I just want to ask this narrow question: 5 years probation, odds that it's going, because it's no alcohol in possession. Okay.
Yeah, no alcohol and no being and you can't go to places where people are drink. Like you can't go to bars and all that. Yeah, it really limits where you can go. Or
what are the odds that that's going to be a 5 year that he's going to make it 5 years?
Well, I think ultimately 5 years is very stiff, but the court has said, if you do really good, we can terminate early, which I'm hoping. 5 year sentence is very stiff, and I said probation, and I'm sure Tyler, you know this. I know you don't do a ton of criminal stuff, but you have clients on probation. It gets really tough.
Yeah,
basically everything you do, you have to tell them about. Like, you get a new job, you move, you do this, you do that. You're driving around. They could say, like, hey, where are you up to? Where are you going?
Your Fourth Amendment rights are gone.
Yeah. They get to show up at his house, 9 o'clock. They might generally like 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. Hey, we need to talk to you. How are things going? We want to check the house. He gets pulled over on the side of the road. The sheriff, from what I understand from talking with people that are out there, the police out there fucking hate his guts. So guess what? Every little infraction they're going to pull him over for. And I know this will happen. They're going to say, hey, we want to search your car. He'll say, now. And they're going to, pull out their phone and, call probation officer Bob or whoever and boop, 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 boop. And, say, hey, Bob, we have Nick here. He won't let us search the car. And Bob's going to be like, Nick, let him search the fucking car. And, that's going to happen. Like, they are going to, they're going to be big. They're going to be big assholes about everything, probably.
Speaking of which, let's double check this. Is Sean on the right mic?
Oh, hold on. Let me.
They're worried that you're coming through on your camera, maybe.
Oh, all right. Hold on. Yeah. Sorry, Chad. Sorry. Hold
on. People, the production value. Hang on. No.
There we go. Should be.
There we go. Okay, that's a Sean we know.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had by the way, just to clarify, I do family law. I've done criminal when I first started a little bit, but I don't do it. But as far as your idea of probation, I do a lot of domestic violence restraining orders go hand in hand with family law. Okay. And I always talk to my clients when they have a restraining order against them, a temporary one. It gets in here in California, it's just done in the pleadings. They file it ex parte. The other party is not there, and it's initially granted or not, and then we have a hearing or a trial. And sometimes it could, be 6 months out before you get your trial. And I tell them, you're like on probation, okay? And your probation officer is the opposing party that can report on you at any time. So often we get to trial, and the underlying issue isn't even important anymore. It's all the violations. So it could be just as bad, your kid's taken away and all kinds of stuff. So I get it as far as I go, but I'm just clarifying this out there. I don't do criminal.
Yeah. But I mean, just, you understand the idea of, though, like with probation, they can do whatever the hell they want to you.
Yeah.
And it's, you run into the cops, you have to notify. You want to move, you have to notify. You change your job, you have to notify. About damn near anything you want to do, you have to tell them.
Yeah. Completely so. Okay. For those that aren't aware, do you want to just set us up with the Rekieta, issue, your involvement with him? I don't mind how personal you get or don't.
Yeah.
By the way, I've only had one time Nick came into my chat. Let me see if I even have this.
He saved it.
We'll talk about that. But I don't really have much interaction with him at all. But anyway, go ahead. Well, if you want to give the overview of the story.
Okay.
of Nick, starting his arc and his downfall.
Sure. And I'll summarize Nick's comment there by quoting the great Ethan Ralph saying, "That's not true." But moving on from there, yes, Nick Rekieta, he runs a channel, Rekieta Law. It's a small law firm in central Minnesota, but it's never been a law channel, according to him nowadays. He was doing really good. I mean, he started doing this, going over lawsuits, going over internet drama, legal stuff. I mean, like Keemstar was out there, but he's not a lawyer, so it didn't really help. And I mean, he really made it big. He got big involved with Vic Mignogna when he got his defamation lawsuits and all this other stuff going. And Nick became pretty big, covering all this stuff. He covered the Dick Masterson and Maddox lawsuits. And yeah, he was doing really good. I mean, he was, he ended up, I think the high watermark, as it were, like when Pickett crossed the stone wall at Gettysburg on Cemetery Ridge, he got all the way up there, and that was the high watermark. It was the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. Just everybody was on there. I remember I was watching at the time, and because I had watched other attorneys do stuff like Viva Fry and them, and I'm like, I could fucking do this, and I'm like, I'll get to it at some point. And my lovely future missus here, my muse, kept on saying, "Well, fucking do it, keep doing it." And I was actually getting ready to do it as soon as the trial ended. But I remember watching the trial, watching all these guys on there, even like Emily Baker, all these people. Mm-hmm. At one point, it was to the point where I think it was the AP copy struck Nick's Nick's feed. And Emily Baker was like, hold on. And Emily Baker's got pull. She made a phone call or two, and it was like, boom, back up on. Like instantly. Like it got fixed like RFN. But that was the high water mark. And then we got into Johnny Depp, the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. That's kind of where I popped into the scene. It was in 2022 now. It's weird thinking about it like that. It's been a while. And then from there in 2023 and 2022, things were going great for Nick, raking in over with super chats alone. I think up to this date now, it's over like $1.3 million super chats, not even counting all the ad revenue, which if you guys don't realize, the click-through revenue and stuff like that from YouTube back in the day was amazing. And it's all these adpocalypses and the way YouTube's mess with the system now. You don't make as much as it used to. But, little channels would make a killing back in the day, and now they don't. But Nick was just, cleaning house, ad revenue, click-through, super chats, private advertising deals. He had locals going. Then he ended up getting a big old contract from Rumble for, probably a couple $100,000. We don't really know. Made millions and millions, like probably made at least, I think at least $2.5 million doing all this. Crazy. And then in 2023, he kind of started sliding through and started kind of falling through the cracks. He had his contract and he quit doing stuff as much. And he started telling people this isn't a law channel. I don't want to cover stuff anymore. Trials are gay. I hate covering trials. And then by 2024, he really started falling apart. Was like, kind of blackout drunk a lot of nights. Didn't realize what's going on half the time. And then in May of 2024, he shows up, disappears for like 45 minutes, comes back on stream. He's heavily intoxicated. And he shows up and he's got white stuff on his nose. And we all kind of knew what we thought it was. And then from there, the police saw that and they're like, oh, hey, that's pretty good probable cause. They execute a search warrant a couple days later, found like 25 grams of cocaine in his house. And from there, charged him with felony cocaine possession, and Children's Services got involved, took his kids out of the house. And the rest is history.
What's interesting to me, and I'm going to play a clip here where he talks a little bit about the family law.
I think that's a pretty good recap of it.
That's a really good recap. Matter of fact, I would have gone down some rabbit holes that would have been unnecessary, and you kept it. Did really.
Well, I mean, like I will say there, this whole thing has been beneficial to me in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Jim Medeker knows who I am. He knows of me as the fat guy Nick Rekieta yelled at. Like, it's pretty cool. Mr. Medeker knows who you are.
Who's Mr. Medeker? See, I don't know who that is.
You, Mr. Medeker? Oh, okay. Oh, well, then I don't know how to explain it to you, but he's really cool. Okay. So,
What about Barnes? He knows who you are.
Yeah, great. Yeah, Robert Barnes knows who I am. Yeah.
The best thing that came. Look, I don't at all, say that or like wish bad for Nick. That's not been my thing at all.
Yeah.
I started watching him. Tyler, your volume is way low now.
Yeah, you got really low for a second. Is
it back? Am I?
Try a little more.
Hello.
It's still a little low.
I don't know. Maybe it's my Rodecaster because it's I'm pumping it out here, but let me just see if my settings, if I can help you out here. Nope, I probably can't. Okay. Well, anyway, it's super low.
Yeah.
Tell you what. Do you mind if I just come back and come?
No,
come
go
back?
for it.
It's my show, but hopefully I'll be able.
Yeah.
to
No. All right, chat. We're gonna start building towers. No, don't build towers. Don't build towers for Tyler. Build a tower. Tyler. So, no, guys, it's been an interesting story. Oh, let's see if that works.
Hello.
Yes, very,
okay,
very.
Okay. Continue on with what you were talking to the chat about.
No, I was gonna say we're gonna build towers in chat, but tower's gonna be Tyler.
No, that's not good.
Well, no, it's gonna be a Tyler tower. It wasn't gonna be a.
Okay. No, I don't hope the worst for Nick at all. And I started watching it with the Rittenhouse stuff, and I enjoyed a lot of that stuff. I would watch it. I still do. I learned stuff from different attorneys talking about things. Just you can pick up things here and there, and also just kind of because it keeps me on my toes. I think some of this because I'm in court a lot. Okay, and then I do a lot of trials. Now the trials I do are more like long cause hearings, we call them, but it could be 1, 2 day, sometimes 3 day trials. It's like a lot, right? So, over a year, I've got, 7, 10, 15 trials a year that I'm doing, all little, short stuff. So I'm in there a lot. And so it's fun to watch trials, even though it's civil and criminal is a little different. Just trying to keep your toe actions. But my point is, I don't want to see the bad for Nick at all. But the best thing that came out of this, I think, was for me seeing how Barnes really is.
Oh yeah, well I think it's I hate to use it because this guy introduced the term, but it's he's a flim flam man. I mean it's everything. He gasses you up. And everything is going to be a flawless victory, and it doesn't turn out to be that way. And I think it's, I'll give Barnes credit. He does take on really tough cases that are in really bad positions. He's not afraid to fight, but he comes in and just swings and misses, and.
Oh, go ahead. Keep going.
He just babbles and blusters his way through things, and people are like, you just got to go, it's unconstitutional, and, the deep state, and, my heckin' constitution. And everybody's like, right on, yeah. You're like, okay, but what about the rest of it?
Well, he's found his, look, as an attorney, he may be good. As a pontificator of legal stuff, I think he's like the Jim Cramer, which is, CNBC, if you watch him, he's not so good on predicting things. But because he does it from a point of view, I believe, where it's to pander to his crowd. So sometimes he comes in there and I feel like, okay, you've got, the real constitutional thing, but he talks so much about, you just don't understand, right? I'm way up here and you don't understand the reality of the situation and corrupt judge, bad jurisdiction, this and this. And it's always a problem with it, which I understand, especially someone who's more, libertarian leading. Your rights and whatnot can be very, I don't like hypocrisy. And so that's what we have a lot in this case. Sean, I don't want you to die on screen.
I'm not. I'm getting over my sinus issues. It's still
just
I have
kidding.
this nasty dry cough.
Okay.
But no, it's a very true thing for him. I don't think it's audience capture. I think he likes to gas people up. I think he likes to be able to say that and be able to say, as there's a book, it's one of the books on my bookshelf here. It's when the Japanese naval staff was getting ready to fight the Battle of Midway, they were like, what's going to happen? They're like, we win 100-1 every time. It's like, it sounds like you want to be able to be that guy saying, well, what's going to happen? You're going to win 100-1. We're going to be flawless victory here. It's that I don't know for him why he does that, but I don't find any value in gassing people up all the time and telling them it's going to be, it's going to work out and then just ignore it when it doesn't. I don't roll that way. I don't see the value in it. But hey, he does.
I agree. Okay. I want to play this clip here. And by the way, we will then kind of backtrack with some of these clips to the overall, the scheme, the warrant. We can go down those things. I don't know how much you remember of everything.
Oh, I remember pretty good.
Okay. So let's start with, let me see if I've got to read. Okay. I just hope I don't lose this here. Just hang with me. Okay. There we go. I think I wanted to do, let's try this one. Okay. You okay with this view?
Yeah, I like this. This is nice.
Okay. There's different things here. Okay. Let me see. Let me know. Can you hear this? Okay.
I just want to hear it quick.
Okay. So this was just taken. Alyssa Clips has this a quick juicy detail from Rekieta's legal woes. If you want me to pause it at any point, tell me. I'll pause it. But basically this, I don't know if you've seen this clip already.
I've seen it before.
Okay. Well, then you can comment just
juicy detail from my legal woes. From my legal woes. And if Robert Barnes is still in the chat, this will be fun. In the midst of our family case, because we had two cases going, we had a family case, and then we also had my criminal case. I guess Lady Raggeds had a criminal case too, but it was mostly going to be mine once things got to the right spot where I could negotiate away her case. In the midst of the family case, we had, we would have hearings and they would go into chambers. Now there's this weird thing where everybody gets to go into chambers except you. And that makes sense normally when it's just lawyers going into chambers. But when it's the lawyers and the county workers who are represented by the lawyers and the guardian ad litem who has their own lawyer.
I think he's bullshit there.
Okay, I think so too. So walk me through this, because I want to say one thing, which is this happens all the time. Okay, we do this, especially family law, and see, I think you've delved into, or you do some of that as well. This is not foreign to me at all.
Family law, criminal law, everything. Judge wants to not go on the record like, what are we actually here for today?
Yes, and it's great because you get to kind of argue. Anyway, this happens, and a guardian ad litem is the legal representative of the children. So to have them in there is, of course, entirely. I've done that. Now in here we call them minors counsel a lot, but there's guardian ad litem. They come in there and they rule the day on custody stuff always. I mean, just whatever they want is literally what's going to happen. But what about the social workers? That does seem a little odd to me.
No. I don't think that happened, but no, if they came into the, I'd be like, especially if they were talking, I'd be looking at them like, who put the nickel in you? Like, no, like, this ain't your time to talk.
So do you think they were there and that just one of the attorneys never, said anything about it? Or do you think it's not even true?
Well, who knows? The way Nick talks about shit half the time,
That's true.
You can't rely on it. So
that was going to be my other question, which is, this is okay. Let's just keep playing this. That's his first setup, though.
Everybody else gets to go in, but you feel a little disenfranchised straight out the gate because you don't get to go and hear the discussion with the judge. Only the lawyers should be in chambers with the judge. The guardian ad litem and the county workers should not.
Do you agree with that?
If the guardian ad litem is not an attorney, because you can have those in some states.
Yeah.
They're called like court appointed special advocates or whatever. If they're an attorney, they have every right to be there. But once again, I don't know, because you have to take this through Nick's filters. And this is where also you have to take it through like your client's filters. Your client says, hey, X, Y, and Z happened. And you're like, that seems really weird. And then you do a little digging and you're like, okay, that's not at all what happened. Or if it did happen, there's 100% perfectly logical and consistent reason for it happening. So, while Nick says this, I'm like, it also doesn't help. He's, pretty much fried his skull at this point. Like, who knows? Like, I don't know. Remember, he thinks it's all a conspiracy, and he's like, I was going to confront the caseworker and like, you lied in court, and he's like, they're all in it against me, and like, who really knows? Who knows?
Sean, I get a lot of times, family law cases, they're in all kinds of flux, right?
Yeah.
Could be multiple years. So oftentimes the case has been going and someone wants a new attorney and they come to me and they tell me a story. Exactly what thing you just talked about there, which is I'm like, okay, that's fine. I want all the pleadings. I finally get everything and then I work through it. And sometimes they're just completely, it's like the story they tell their friends, which makes it sound good. And then, the pleadings and the rulings are completely different. So it's exactly what you're talking about. I'm sure you've had that experience as well.
Yeah. And I think it's not always people lie. Sometimes people do lie. It's just they don't understand what's happening. Or this is really common with like OVI case. You get somebody who is like, well, I remember waking up. I'd parked. I had just parked and I'd passed out, and the cops pulled up to me. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then when I get the video, no, it's a 4-lane road, and she's in the shoulder lane, passed out with her foot on the brake, and cars are going by, and they wake her up, and she takes her foot off the brake, and you show it to her, and she's like, I don't remember it happening like that. And it's like, I don't doubt her. She has convinced herself or believes it happened a certain way. It also doesn't help because I asked her, I'm like, you're telling me you remember all this, but you're like blackout drunk though, right? Yeah. Are you sure you remember this? But I do agree with him though. It is a disenfranchising situation when everybody gets to go in the courtroom but you. Like criminal cases. I understand courts like to do it this way, but it's very much, people think the prosecutor and defense attorneys are in cahoots anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So that doesn't help things. And then with children's services cases, I take, when people get their kids taken from home, especially it's one county they call because they don't have a lot of attorneys, I volunteer. Like I'll take the appointed cases. I'll be appointed counsel on those because people really need counsel. But also for a lot of people, especially the people who typically get their kids taken away, who are generally, disadvantaged, not necessarily the most intelligent, and they're not in most well-off situations. That area of the society thinks the county's stealing your kids, the government's stealing your kids all the time. So it's hard for, and it's hard for me to say the way they act at times where they're like, they may not understand what's happening, but I have to say, I understand why you think that's happening. But for someone like Nick, this is where I think it's like, I don't cut him any slack here because he should know what's going on. He should be able to figure out what's going on. But once again, I can't trust him for being reliable because all he's done is lie this entire fucking time. So
no, I'm with you. So that was going to be my kind of no. By all means, this is your show tonight as well. Matter of fact, you're the guest, so you have carte blanche. But my point was going to be, I understand it's disenfranchising, okay, but this happens a lot. Okay, we do this, so Nick should know that. He should know that this is not an odd thing, and maybe now you can put yourself in the feet of your clients going forward. If you continue this. Okay, let's just keep going this.
Because they're represented parties. If they're unrepresented, then sure, maybe they could be in there. But if I can't go in, the other parties shouldn't be able to, in my opinion, go in. That's why we have representation. So this comes secondhand from my lawyer. But as we were arguing,
I will pause. His lawyer seems kind of shitty.
Well, we have a video that we're going to play of that.
Okay. Yeah. And Nick routinely has stated now multiple times that his lawyer has not done what he's asked him to do or did really retarded things. So I question the competency of this attorney. And it's like, who knows what actually you were told?
Yeah. By the way, I just go back to this is I find this stuff in chambers. It's always helpful for me. Now we also do settlement conferences, and we have pro tem judges. And they will do the exact same thing. Their client doesn't come in unless they're, self-represented. And it's very helpful for me to help convince my client maybe one way or another, because you get a good idea of what's going to happen.
Exactly. Yes.
And then you get a talk. And sometimes those judges will come out and I'm talk to my client or the opposing party, and we get a settlement because they're like, here's the reality of the situation. Now we understand that. Do you still want to proceed to trial? So, yeah.
Oh yeah, no, and that's where I go out there and I'm like, hey man, like they're like, oh, so what happened? I'm like, the magistrate is not looking it's not looking good for us, man. The magistrate's like, we can choose, like, you might want to settle. Like the magistrate is not happy with your case.
Yeah.
To be fair, she's not happy with your wife either, so we should probably just.
Right. I don't. These, by the way, people. I produce a show called Tower Gang. Okay, so towers. I'm not at all allergic to them. So do as you must. Okay, let's keep going here.
No, they mean N-word towers.
Returning.
They mean what?
N-word towers.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
What do you think the Tower Gang started? Okay.
Children in the middle of the case. The county, while asserting that they wanted to continue keeping the children out of my home, gave a reason that was, we just don't really like what he says online.
Okay, well, long pause there for no reason. So,
well,
go ahead.
What we don't like what he says online is that we don't like what he says online, or when he's doing the "you've lied to me" and your drunken rages, and they're like, we don't want to fuck. Like, this guy's fucking insane.
Right.
Like, I'm sure that's like, I'm sure Nick had a thing at the Kandiyohi County Children's Services office saying, if he shows up, call the fucking sheriff. Because I'm sure he came off as like a psychopath to them.
What were the and this was my question when I saw this. I wrote a little thing down, and I don't need to look at it because I think I can remember. Do you think it's his spicy libertarian takes that they're worried about, or the fact that he, the rude things he said about the judge? Remember,
it's not even the rude things he said about the judge, but he's literally at tirades where he's naming children's services workers' names off.
Well, yes, all those kind of things that he was, doxing or talking about the judge and the social workers and all those. I think that could be. I mean,
Ruby, you lied. I was going to call you on court next. That's the stuff he did. And it's like, you like I had to work with people on this. You may not like these people, but if they think you're a complete lunatic, we're toast. You're going to have to suck it up and work with these people. And, who really knows, though? Who really knows what was said? Because we don't know.
Okay. So you're right. There's two levels, right? The first is this even believable? And then two, was this? So you've probably had this more than I have, which is maybe it's a celebrity or it's a big case that comes out and, maybe the media or, you've watched enough, right? Look at Karen Reed. She's out there talking to the media and it's a big deal. Your perception is how you're being perceived isn't just important to the jury, but it can be to a judge like this, right? He's out there making all these statements. Now it's probably a bench trial for CPS case. It's not going to be I doubt it's going to be a jury trial. So those are more important that the judge, right?
Yeah, I would presume not a jury trial.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway. No, I mean, it's important. And I will say Nick is correct about one thing. Yes, CPS has your kids. So you do have to tap dance at times for them.
Yeah.
And I have had to tell people, they come to your door and they knock on your door and say, here, pee in this cup. It's I hate to tell you, they can do what they want, but they can do what they want. And it's but if you know that, play the fucking game.
And then we're going to get to that with the Barnes because, anyway, let's just keep going with it. I don't know if there's much more I really wanted to play on this one, but we'll keep going on this one.
I would also just point out, too, Tyler.
Great thing about
things he was saying, though, also include, drugs are awesome. I'd keep doing drugs if I could. All the retarded things he kept saying.
Right.
That, so I'm sure he did say stuff that they were we got problems with. And I'm sure it's things like that. For the longest time, he would not tell them where the drugs came from or how the drugs got in the house. So
he didn't have drugs.
What?
Didn't he claim that he never had drugs?
Well, that too. But part of the safety plan for the children's services people was we need to make sure that you, a dangerous thing happened in this house. How do we prevent that? Well, I don't know how the drugs got here. Well, if you can't tell them how it happened, you can't work on preventing it. So they were we need to fix this. And, he went and got his use immunity and drug it out for however long. But,
hey, he was stuck in a place. I've had this many times, which is there's a competing cases, right? You've got your criminal case and you've got your family civil case in a sense. Well, it is civil. And you have so we often just push down the road the civil case till the criminal one is taken care of because you don't want a self-incrimination, on the civil that's going to affect the criminal. So this happens all the time. And if this was just him with CPS, I had different advice for him than I could totally understand what he was doing in this case. He can't come out there and go, mea culpa. Yeah.
Yeah, and I understand it too, though. But from their side of it, it's like the guy won't admit, yeah, I've done drugs. Like, he wouldn't admit, like, he couldn't, like, all the stuff he told us, I guarantee you he bullshitted and ran him around with there. They're like, so, yeah, it's what you're saying. They're like, I ain't done nothing wrong. I was innocent. You know, I'm just a good boy. Like, my cocaine wasn't hurting anybody. You know, that my house looking like a Haitian refugee camp wasn't a big deal. Like, you know, when you do all that, the things you say concern them.
Yeah, especially on when you're trying to get your kids back. For me, you know, the concept is always you admit, you know, it depends on what stage you're at here, but it's like admitting the guilt and getting past it and recovery and doing what you can so that the court trusts you and the other party trusts you. In my cases, in him, it's just the you know, the social workers and the court, but he couldn't literally do a lot of that, but he still could have massaged it. I think. Okay, let's see if we can get past this here.
Like I said, there's some stuff he could have done, but I guarantee you his recalcitrant nature didn't help things.
No.
There's nothing you can do about it. And that is just a taste of what Lady Rackets and I were facing during this fiasco and why it was so fucking frustrating. I don't know if you guys know, but there's an amendment that addresses exactly what was said there. And if you listen to guys like Robert Barnes, people who have actually fought with CPS and dealt with them and dealt with counties in these types of cases, they have reduced standards on everything. They have basically no rules because they get this protect the child standard. And they, you know, in a criminal case, you have to get beyond a reasonable doubt. But in a family case that involves juvenile protection, they only require a preponderance of the evidence. And so they don't, and they get to use something called reliable hearsay, which is how they introduce a lab test result, for example, without having an expert or someone who even understands how a lab test result may come to be or what it means. They don't need to introduce anything. They literally just read numbers off of a document, even though they don't understand them and have no qualifications to discuss them or determine what those numbers might represent.
Okay, that's all I'm going to play here because I got some issues with some of that. One is he's almost acting like he doesn't like we don't understand that there's different standards for civil and criminal.
Well, but here's the thing though. I think people don't understand, like in a children's services case though, it's really relaxed. So for example, like a shelter care hearing, which is like the emergency hearing after children are moved from the home. So it's like the day after kids get taken away, you have a hearing. And you sit there and the caseworker's talking about, oh, I talked to the neighbors, and you can object and say it's hearsay, but under state law, and the Supreme Court of Ohio has even said it, you have relaxed hearsay standards, even there. And totally. Yes, it becomes, is the hearsay credible? Not necessarily, we'll bring that person in. Like, there are very relaxed standards.
Well, so this happens. This is in California as well, which is, and I kind of mentioned this before, which is we call them short cause and long cause hearings, right? Short cause, you're coming in here, maybe it's on an emergency issue or it's just a regular motion, and I'm testifying for my client like all the time. Matter of fact, the judge often says, "Mr. Yankee, I'd like to hear from your client. Is that okay?" That they will, and I'm like, yes or no. You know, maybe we're not going to have you talk to my client. Maybe my client's not going to speak. Now, when we go to and so the standards are very relaxed. But if you push this to the ultimate end, which I think they could have had here too, which is a trial, you're going to have, I believe at that point, I don't know the whole case, even with CPS, you're going to have, that report you can admit earlier, but now if you're trying to do it for a trial, you're going to have a custodian record. Someone's going to have to come and testify, and it's a whole shebang. But he didn't get there. He didn't have to get there, and they pushed it down the road. So anyway, it's understandable, but I get it. And maybe he's just doing law splaining of criminal to civil, but this is just the nature of everything you got going.
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair though, I mean, how many people actually know this? How many people have been in a removal hearing? And once again, there are times where he says things that are fair or accurate, and I'll give him credit for saying fair or accurate, issues and concerns, but they are flashes in the dark compared to everything else he does. What
was the case that we just had It was taking Bruin to the nth degree. It was the guy that had a restraining order in Texas. Rahimi, thank you. So and I brought this up, and it's my big problem with restraining orders in general, which is the standard for those, at least domestic violence ones, is just the preponderance of the evidence. I mean, that's the lowest standard you've actually got to get a restraining order. And then that restraining order has effective CLETs, registering, at least here in California, where you don't get to have your gun. So you are essentially getting your, Second Amendment rights taken away under a preponderance of the evidence standard, which is really bad. And Gorsuch kind of mentioned this, but they all think it's fine. So I get it.
Well, it's because if you say it's not fine, that means you're okay with domestic violence victims and women getting killed and beaten to death. It's just like if there was, it's kind of like Stitz v. Michigan. It's like, no, you can't do DUI checkpoints. That means you want all these little kids to die in drunk driver crashes on the way home from prom. That's how that goes. So that is the problem. And I will say the other thing though too, when you have protection order, restraining order, the cops pop that up. So like, if you're driving down the road, why are you within a quarter mile of where you're not supposed to be? And you'd better have a goddamn good answer. Right. Like, I'm on the main drive through town, or like, why are you? It's no, you're on a side street 3 blocks away. You're like. There are many ways it can be used to restrict you. But yes, Rahimi was. It also didn't help. The public defenders were arguing that. They weren't really arguing a Second Amendment case.
No, I get that. So look, I think you're kind of with me, which is in general, I'm concerned about rights, right? Getting due process and everybody getting their fair shake. And sometimes you have to let the shit balls go loose. To maybe to set precedent or whatnot going forward. I get that. So this case though, because that's how Barnes wants us to basically take this view, which is if you don't think Nick should be free, you don't care about the Constitution and all this stuff. And I could differentiate. I'm probably more anarchist than a lot of people in here, but I'm also live in the real world. And so what are our laws? How do you navigate yourself around these things? So what's your kind of thought with Nick's place here in the Barnes constitutional stuff?
I mean, the ultimate thing is, with the idea of like, anarchy or libertarianism is the idea that people would do their own self-local governance, because at some point you do have to work together. And the idea is you keep it as local as possible. Well, the people in town, okay, fine, we don't have a law against this. They would have, 100 years ago, they would have taken Nick outside and beat the shit out of him after church. Yeah. I mean, there are ways the community used to regulate things. Like, there are ways this used to happen. So, I mean, it's not like they would have just been okay with this. At some point, like your kids are showing up, not well fed, their clothes aren't clean. And imagine how that would look 100 years ago, 150 years ago. Like, the government, like the guys from the church will show up with axe handles and they'll be like, all right, Nick, come on, we need to talk.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it wasn't as simple. Like, people seem to think like back in the day, it was just like, I do whatever the fuck I want. It's like, no, communities were very good at self-regulating themselves. Like, that was a very consistent thing. So it's not as though they would say back then, not our problem. At some point it would become their problem.
Absolutely.
So that's what I think, Robert Barnes is the libertarian to the point of like, go live in the woods libertarian. It's like, okay, I get it. Yeah, my roads and all that. But at some point, I'm not going to live in the fucking woods by myself. Like, because that's where, I'm not going to be Ted Kaczynski.
Right. Well, Ted Kaczynski, little known story about him. He tried to transition at one point, and he even went and he, because back then to do that, you had to get a psychologist or psychologist to okay it, and they wouldn't do that. Let's go to some super chats here. I had a few here. $2. Sean gives us the black pill when we need it. Okay. That's there.
I can give you the nice answer or the real answer.
What?
Yeah, okay. Like, that's what I mean when it comes to things. I can tell you, it's going to be okay, or I can tell you what it really is going to be.
No, you want Squizgar2322 says, I think Barnes takes on long odd cases, so losses are not a surprise. No. Okay. That could be.
Nobody likes getting their ass kicked.
Right. LPR forgot to tell Sean happy birthday.
It's not my birthday.
Okay. $20 from AJ says, good show. Okay, I appreciate that. Two more things here. Hamilton says he said horrible things about judges on numerous occasions. He comes as very unhinged and angry, which is unpredictable and requires caution, especially if one is under the influence.
Yes. I mean, that's like, yes, him talking about the judges and all of that. Just the way he acted unhinged every time he was on screen. Yeah, it doesn't look good.
No. LPR is with Sean. They are dating now, partners. We're he's catfishing me. That's what
Hold
I'm
on, here you go. You got to put your
wait, I can't.
There you go. Got to put the heart up. Together forever.
Okay. Someone's going to clip that, and then I'm going to be ostracized with my family. Okay, let me remove this one. See if I could replace it with a different one. Hang on just one moment.
Sure.
There we go. I think... But before I do that...
This is so funny when he cries about this. It's like First Amendment and getting memed, and you're like, they're come after me to attack me.
You know, midway through, it was after the Franks, I think, announcement. It was somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
I did a show playing his other comments, just comparing him with that one, and it was so striking. It was ridiculous. But before we do that, Sean, I want to play this. This is a compilation video by a good friend of ours, you, if you don't mind. Give me 2:45. Here we go.
Yeah.
Rekieta's already won.
Please tell me again how you got that one right. We won't even get into how bad your analysis has been on the actual substance of the motion that we filed.
All these people are just proving how fraudulent they are. I mean, it's two different aspects. Some of these people are just deferential to the state no matter what. The second aspect is they either are completely incompetent in these basic areas of law, or they're lying and they're fraudsters and they're just for cash.
Our lawyers weren't doing anything. I got criticized for thing in court, and it's because I was at my lawyer off the mic to object.
And a bunch of the so-called practicing lawyers on law too. By the way, if anybody practicing lawyer on law too is giving the kind of advice these people are on the Rekieta case, note to never hire them.
Bad lawyers. You. And when you're
he's making basically just ridiculous statements about probable cause in the Fourth Amendment. And this goes.
But you have to know what you're talking about. But hey, you know what?
I love
it'd be kind of weird. You know, it'd be kind of strange. What if I told you that there's a lawyer out there who is representing a client in a felony possession case in Candy, Ohio County, in front of Judge Wenzel, and won that case on a Frank's challenge, running around in the truest definitions of a 90s
Rekieta's
Okay, Sean. I took a little liberties. I think I played that for you last time. I had some bleeps in there because I was trying to make it sound a little more racy than it was. But there you go. There you go.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing is, the Barnes doesn't even understand where the practicing lawyer part came from. That came from when he was on with Eric July came on, and Nick was, I think, in bad faith, drew Eric July on there to make it sound like Eric July was committing charity fraud and screwing around with his charitable donations. And Eric said, "My lawyers actually practice. Thank you very much." And that set Nick on the fucking edge.
What did you think about that? Because that was actually the last thing I had seen with Nick until the whole issue came about with the drugs. What did you think about that? Because I thought I'm not a fan at all of Dick Masterson. I think he's a POS, but I actually didn't think that Eric July handled himself well on that either.
He didn't, but the problem is he got baited into that, and Nick took advantage of that. So I mean I don't blame Eric for that.
Yeah. Okay.
Nick, that was a setup. At the end of the day, like at first I was like that wasn't good faith. Now I look back on it, it was clearly a fucking setup because Nick was already spiraling at this point into shitbaggery. So I'm assuming he had shitbag intentions there for Eric July.
Speaking of, someone happened to put this. I like Eric July's distinction between libertarian and libertarian. These laws shouldn't exist versus I'll pretend these laws don't exist. Is it? Yeah. I mean, okay, living in reality. That's
that
perfect.
Too. Yeah.
My friend Andy puts on here. Can you ask potentially criminal if I can legally distill moonshine in my garage yet?
There was an organization in Texas that had won an injunction for that. I don't know if you still can. If you're part of that organization at the time, you already to have been a member, you were allowed to.
Well, he was in Texas, but now he's in Tennessee, so I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I don't know how it would still work, but I'd be very careful about that.
Okay. We don't need to have him be careful.
If you're willing to let your dog, like, I guess, how willing are you to risk having your dog getting shot over it? Because the revenuers will come.
He does have a dog.
He's in Tennessee.
Yeah.
He's in Tennessee, and Tennessee is the only state in America that talks about shooting at federal agents as part of their state song.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah. Well, Rocky Top talks about those guys looking for a moonshine still. And when they aren't coming back from old Rocky Top. That tells you what happens.
We've got some other Bedford Forest or Forest Bed, whatever. He's from there too. He's got a little.
Yes.
Anyway,
yes.
Okay. Let's play this one. I don't know if we could do the whole. I mean, how much time do you got tonight? Are you doing modeling show? And when you say modeling,
building models.
Oh,
yes. Hold on. I have my real modeling show. Hold on. Yeah. No, I got time. We got time. I got as much time as you got.
Okay. I did put because you said you were going to do a model stream, and I'm like, you could do models later. And
you caught me right before I set one up because I was going to do an early one, but you caught me in time. So.
All right. Well, okay. So let's go through this. I know this is 13 minutes. It may be tough to get through all of it, but I think it's important to play here as well. I hope it fits all on the screen. So
so I don't even know if it's a victory lap because I haven't talked to you about this. We haven't said one word about it since the news broke this week, where Nate the lawyer tweeted out Rekieta is getting 30 days in a county jail or something.
Which was also wrong. I mean, God bless him, but he really couldn't get literally anything right when it came to that.
I want to preface this, Sean, by saying the only people I listened to on this was I did listen to Nate, a little bit of Good Logic. Early on, he was doing some stuff. You and Kurt. I think that's the really. I think those are the only ones I've listened to. And I don't think there was a person between you that was giving crazy commentary. Okay.
So I said the night before this is what was going to happen when we were looking at the recommendations.
Yeah. So, what was it? You said deferred.
Yeah. Well, I said he's going to get the deferred, and I said the 30 days sounds like it's 30 days. They'll give him till August to be house. They'll give him some time frame to act housebroken, and if he acts like a housebroken good little boy, they won't put him in jail.
Okay. Well, here, let's keep going.
So
I don't know how it is you can't read a sentencing doc, but it told me that whatever Nate says, his actual criminal defense experience must be just limited to New York or just really limited in general. Because I know how to read these things, and even though I don't practice in Minnesota very often, and a lot of people got that wrong. The short answer is:
Did you know of anybody that got it wrong? I mean, did you think Nate got it wrong?
I think somebody may have got it wrong. I don't know what Nate said at the time, but people might get that wrong, but it's what's going to happen to his sentencing? Okay, people get that wrong. When you come at the beginning, oh my God, Nick's going to crack this open. Joe Biden's going to go to jail as a result of this. I mean, he's got a lot of room to talk about people getting things wrong in this case.
Well, I think he's being, and I didn't double check this, but I think he's specifically saying, look, when you read the sentencing, it's 30 days deferred. In other words, and I think he said he's basically claiming that Nate said, oh, he's got to do 30 days in jail.
And let's say even if Nate said that,
who cares?
You being in your position, sitting there trying to, actually, people, it's you motherfucker, right. You're 0 for 10 before we got to sentencing.
Right. Okay.
So what Nick? So the first we'll talk about the early predictions as to what was happening.
Oh, the early predictions were past the threshold, 25 years in jail, losing wife, losing kids, jail for a quarter century, like the rest of his life, he's gone.
Do you know anybody that you listened to that gave those predictions?
No.
Or were
I
they
think
saying,
people-
here's the sentencing guideline?
Well, I think like PPP and like Worski, the Gilding the Lily, were like, whoa, he's facing 25 years. And then obviously there's people out there who are like, they want Nick making fucking license plates for the next 2.5 decades. Yeah. But no, in general, no, I don't think anybody said he was ever going away forever. Remember, I mean, of people who said something, this guy said Rekieta's already won. He's going to walk out of there moonwalking. So,
okay. And all all the things he says here, because he just said Nate specifically.
Yeah.
And I don't want to, I only want to keep it to what do you think these people said, which is Nate, Kurt, you, maybe Joe, those people that are kind of in that sphere.
Yeah.
Andrew, legal mindset as well. Okay. Because I heard nothing but kind of what actually happened was what was predicted.
The day he got arrested and like he had the hearing, I had a show and I said he's going to get some sort of deferred adjudication. It's probably going to be like 2 years. He'll do the 2 years. It'll get dismissed. Like I literally said that was what was going to happen. Okay. Like the day of.
And people were loving it was a
there was Schadenfreude enjoyment by a lot of these people who became obsessively hateful of Nick Rekieta, and some did it for personal profit, some did it because treason is what runs in their blood, and they're just disloyal by nature. Some did it because they're utterly incompetent and not capable of analyzing the law from a practical experience.
He made you.
And then others just got caught up in the parade.
I wonder if Nick yells at his kids that. Like he's like, I made you. You're disloyal. Well, yes, the allegations. That comment right there is the white guy who went to Yale Law School's version of "my baby didn't do nothing wrong."
Yep.
That's literally what he just said.
Do you have this? Because I get this way too often in family law, which is opposing counsel. You're in a room, just the two of you are outside, just trying to have a discussion about where we can go, and they act like it's their child. In other words, they can't concede anything, and I'm like, hey, we've got crappy clients, but what can we do to get there? Huh?
I've been that guy too, though. Sometimes.
Okay, well then, screw you.
The early allegation of Nick Rekieta was like he was some sort of huge drug addict and drug user, and his kids were using drugs.
I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes you get you know how it is. You get into the case and you're like, it happens.
I totally understand because I've somewhat been there too, but I typically
generally I'm not.
I'm not going to be that person that can't have comment. I've had people yell at me, sure, or I've yelled at them.
I mean, all this crazy allegation. There was stuff like Nick Rekieta is running a cult. I mean, and we probably took more heat for just going through what the law is concerning Nick Rekieta, defending Nick Rekieta than probably anything else. I mean, even than outing.
Remember, I want to say point that out, which is going through the law, but then he does say defending Nick Rekieta, which I think says a lot about it because he's going to take anybody that didn't defend Nick Rekieta as prosecuting him. When the reality is, when I was early on and I was listening, because I don't do criminal law, I'm just listening to this stuff. I'm thinking, he's kind of screwed.
Robert, Sidney Powell's weaknesses with her case and the Kraken, or outing how nuts Lynn Wood was becoming and Lynn Sanity and so forth.
I think everybody does need to recall in the early stages, it was child neglect. Then there was the cocaine found in the kids' hairs. There was drugs and guns. There was the swinging stuff. I don't get into anybody else's familial life in that regard, but it was everything. It was how can you defend this child abusing, drug
people
abusing.
Create fake images of me as Breaking Bad, telling people how to get your kids hooked on cocaine. I got more smears, slurs, attacks. People with brigade and in communities. If I was just doing any interview anywhere about Rekieta, they come bashing in.
That's the First Amendment, Bobby.
Right,
that's
but
the First Amendment. It's memes. It's mockery. It's satire. Like you're gonna. This is ambition should be made as ambition should be made as sterner fucking stuff. The faintest fleck of sand in your vagina and you keel over in pain. Come on, honey.
But he said some pretty egregious things about.
I understand.
Like Andrew. No,
yeah.
I mean it wasn't.
I agree.
Yeah, so it's a little high horse business here just to have his commentary. I'm not.
He's having a soggy tampon episode. After he calls people pedophiles and mocks
Right.
like I haven't said shit to him, but I think he's an idiot.
Yeah, I said
over
so.
a case they didn't know, over a person they didn't know, and especially I got a kick out of people who are somehow personally impacted. I'm like, how are you personally impacted? So whether
Okay, I agree with him on that. That's gay.
Yes.
Because Nick isn't able to do a show at the moment. I mean, come on. What I said was that knowing Nick Rekieta, not knowing him great, but knowing him well enough, that most of the allegations, the scandalous allegations against him, are likely untrue.
Okay, what do you think of that?
The most scandalous allegations are untrue. Well, what are the most scandalous allegations? Like, this is the way he could say it without having to say things. Because what is the most scandalous allegation for him?
Well, probably the coke in the hair.
Well, yeah. I mean, now, do I still suspect that his kid was inadvertently exposed? Yes. Do I think he intentionally dosed his kid? No.
No.
But, like, that's the most scandalous thing, because right now, pretty much all of it, the polycule's real. We all know it's real. Like, everything else has been confirmed.
Well, and I think it was even on, we didn't finish it, where Nick, that one with Nick talking, he's talking about the reduction in the charges. And he talked about they had to do this because there was other drugs mixed in with it or something like this. And I'm like, I don't quote me on this,
well,
but he was saying something weird like that. And I'm like, okay, so you are admitting that it wasn't planted, right? That it was legitimately your drugs.
Yeah, you're like, so now he's admitting they're his drugs, and he's, he walks back and bounces off those things as he moves, and he keeps moving without having to acknowledge them. That way, he thinks nobody else knows about it.
Right.
That people should not rush to judgment of the case or the individual. That all kinds of people make mistakes. Nobody wants their personal life broadcast, to the whole world. Least of all the biggest mistakes they've ever made in their personal life. That's the principle of the Bible. Be careful what stones you throw, lest don't point out the little problem in somebody else's eye if you got a big stick out of your own. Those are good common sense principles and precepts to adapt in life.
Couldn't even. You talk about throwing stones. No, pulling the beam out of your eye before you worry about the speck in someone else's. It's like, at least get your fucking Bible passages right, Bobby. You're like, come on now, like at least do it right. You're like the stick, the wood thing in your eye. It's like,
but
but we are allowed to say this is wrong. We don't like it.
But it's so cringe too,
and it's also render unto Caesar. I mean, we could do this shit all day long.
Keep going.
You render unto Caesar. It's God's law and there's man's law. Guess what? God says obey man's law too.
Kind of like expect the best, plan for the worst. Yeah. And Nick Rekieta did that. He did the Donald Trump strategy. Expect the best, plan for the worst.
Simping for the Constitution for a quarter century. I love that.
Exactly. Indeed. And so the way in which you defend yourself in that kind of case is defending yourself in law and defending yourself in the court of public opinion. And defending yourself in law, the way you go about doing so in a drug case, is you figure out all the constitutional infirmities that may exist in the case. And I highlighted what those different constitutional infirmities are. Some people confuse that with me saying it was a magic bullet and the case would be dismissed.
And the court looked at those infirmities and said, LOL.
Right.
So there were no infirmities.
Well, I mean, what did Nick actually bring forward though? He brought
Frank's motion. It was like Aaron wasn't trustworthy. The watermark issue on the video, that they didn't actually have the authentic copy because Nick took it down and privated it. So it's like, haha, the original evidence I've secreted away. Haha. Like, it just, the idea that he made all these arguments and the court said these don't fucking matter. So he didn't scare the prosecutor into cutting a deal. I guarantee the prosecutor's like, Nick's like, oh, I got this deal. And the prosecutor would be sitting at the table like, we were going to give you this deal anyway, sir. Well, we give to everybody. But no, it's like you're the guy who comes in driving the hard bargain at the car dealership. You're like, yeah, I fucked it. And I don't know if you've heard people like this. Yeah, I walked in that car dealership and I bent them over the table and fucked them over the coals. You're like, no, they made out on this. They sold you the car they could afford to sell you. They still made money off your ass. Like, they walked out of there like, what? They're just like, oh, no, sir, whatever, please. So like, I'm going to dictate. It's like, but no, you didn't.
Yeah, I mean, if you win the Frank's motion, then you have bargaining power, right? He didn't. There was nothing he won.
Yeah.
Andy has another maybe before you pull the coke out of my kid's hair, pull the tampon out of Barnes' bussy. The Bible. I don't think that's a quote, but that's a nice try. Okay,
I think that's in the back. It's one of the apocrypha.
the back Bible. Okay.
Why you do it? You do it knowing that most lower courts are not willing to challenge the prosecutor or police. But by documenting the seriousness and significance of those constitutional issues, it usually motivates the prosecutor and the police to consider a more reasonable plea negotiation terms. It's how almost all drug pleas get done. If you don't raise a search warrant or Fourth Amendment or constitutional issue in the way the case was prosecuted, you have very little leverage at getting a fair deal. Good logic to his credit. When he first got accused,
because if you don't, but a lot of times you don't, because people are retarded and they've consented to searches, or the police have a warrant that's actually accurate, or other things have happened. So no, Nick had no aces in the hole. He literally had none of this. He literally had none of this.
Corrected that upon review. The second thing, as I said, the allegations about his kids were false. That there are easy ways to know they were false. That the allegations against him didn't make sense. The person that was making some of the people that are listed as making the allegations weren't in a position to make those allegations. There was obvious factual contradictions in the very original story.
How do you know?
His conclusion
this is what he does. He does a thing to run through it.
Look, you've been through law school. Obviously, Barnes has been through it as well. The big thing they used to teach us when you're first writing your things is don't do conclusory statements, right? Yeah. Declarative statement, just throwing out he's guilty because in da-da-da. He does this all the time. I wish he would say the word because and then put some just a cheap way and then put some facts behind it just to support it. But he never does that. And that's how I got blocked from him on Twitter, which was I said that exact thing to him and he blocked me. But that's his prerogative. Any comments about his stating all the facts there that none of the kids' stuff was wrong? Sean's dying.
And just so people understand, then the first-hand account of the children smelling and wearing dirty clothes and complaining of being hungry was allegedly it was third party. It was like
it was like rumor by 6 degrees of separation. And
one, it wasn't by 6 degrees, but that's all allowed in the affidavit, so it's perfectly fine. Are we going to get the? I don't want to lose this thought, and then please go on.
The teachers in the church told the pastor, that's pretty accurate.
Right. Are we going to get the because I saw someone was saying, I think it was the guy that was requesting it, the body cam footage is a deferred, since it's not really a guilty verdict, even though he pled. Is that reason enough to get the body cam footage or not?
I don't know. I'm hoping we can get it. There's other ways people are trying to work on it. I know people are also trying to get a hold of just the general discovery in this case. I know in the case Aaron has with Nick, or the revenge porn case, Aaron's got all the discovery there, and apparently it's hilarious.
Oh man, that would be great.
There's all kinds of good stuff out there. Also, Minnesota Public Records, from what I understand, has about 70 pages of hot, juicy documents ready to drop.
This sounds. I know it's not going to happen, but the CPS stuff is stuff I would really like to get my hands on. All that's gone in there, and you have a reason to not have that because it's minors and whatnot. But I think that is the crux of. I think he can really push himself where this is not going to come out, or some of it's leaked, a few things, but not a lot. And he could probably push himself like this is never, this. You don't understand. You don't understand what really happened. Hey,
I'll tell you later.
Yeah. I've done this way too many times, which is hair follicle test. Go get it done. Why did he not follow up with his own test of his daughter? That is super easy to do.
To be fair, people are making the arguments of, the grandparents had possession of the kid. The grandparents don't have custody of the kid. So the grandparents couldn't take them to get a hair test done. If that had happened, the agency would have come in and plucked those kids out of the home. Because who are the parents of that kid effectively, legally at that moment?
Well, the state.
Is the county. Yes. But that's an argument people were trying to say, and I'm like, that's not a correct statement, because you can't just do what you want when you're the kinship placement. That's like if a foster family just did whatever the fuck they wanted. That would be a no-go. Now, Nick could have had his attorney file a motion. We demand to have a new hair test.
There you go.
And Nick, I know, is bitching and caterwauling that, the attorney they gave me sucked. Well, the attorney you hired didn't fucking do it. Why didn't he fucking do it?
Yeah.
Why didn't you guys do it?
We see this with Karen Reed as an example. Now, this is a little different, but I've never had an incident where one party can get test results or an expert, and the other side is not allowed to also get their own test results and their expert. So you tell me if I'm wrong, but I blew my mind that was never pushed from his side. And I guess you answered that. So,
I mean, he tries to act like, oh, and here's the funny thing. He does the shit regular people do. Oh, I was helpless in the system. Like, you guys didn't ask for, like, you hired this Frank White, his attorney, is like one of Barnes recommended him as like, and the joke is he's the Barnes walker.
Right.
You guys didn't think to file a fucking motion? Like, what were you doing? Because, he, like, all they did was apparently he just bent over and spread it for the, the agency, it sounds like.
Right.
But they didn't,
In
like,
multiple years.
Sorry, go ahead.
You talk about you want to fight, and this is going to be the Battle of the Salo Heights, and you're like, I'm dug in, not one step back further, and you're like running halfway to Berlin before the first shot. Like, what are you doing?
All right. Okay, let's see.
Context and a story that didn't even make sense on its own. Thing.
But plus also, kids are dirty and kids are hungry, especially when they don't eat
that's the reality of the world. So there was no kids using drugs. Kids weren't around drugs. Any of that. If you understood how those hair tests work, you knew that was going to be bogus and be rebutted very quickly. And so,
do you think it was rebutted? And do you think the kids?
No,
I mean, the kids were in the house, so they were around drugs.
Well, yeah, and you've dealt with this, Tyler. Mom and dad are using drugs. Mom and dad, or mom and a boyfriend, or dad and a girlfriend are using drugs in a house. Kid get exposed to drugs. You're like, and if I tell you that fact pattern, are you shocked by that fact pattern?
No.
It happens every goddamn day.
Yeah. And by the way, let's just step back. When kids are involved, how the court typically sees these things. Standard, I think probably in every state is best interest of the child standard.
Yes.
And when you have, it's even like parents are fighting, okay, maybe it's a domestic violence issue of violence order. And if the parents are just fighting in a closed room, that's bad enough. And, you can have kids taken away. But if you do that fighting, at least California, in front of the children, it's tantamount to abusing the children. Just throwing that out there. So,
really?
Yeah. So if the kids are seeing this and they're witnessing the fighting, that is just, you're able to protect the kids. They're going to get taken away much easier. I mean, there's always variations. Everything's, kind of a grayscale. But I'm just telling you, and you can imagine this in most states where you do something and kids are involved or able to get X, Y, in places, you're going to have someone likely step in. I'm not telling you I think that's the way it is. I'm not a drug guy, pushing all that. But I'm just telling you the reality of the situation.
Oh, no,
okay.
I agree.
What I predicted was that many of the allegations against him were false, that he had good constitutional defenses, and that if he leveraged them correctly, he would get a reasonable disposition and would not end up losing his kids, losing his wife, losing his family, losing his business, or losing his liberty. In fact, I was right on this one. So, trusting in Nick paid off. I think Nick made his mistakes. He's been public about those mistakes. I think he's been way too harshly attacked for those mistakes. There, but for the grace of God, go anybody. If you know anything about the nature of drugs or certain substances, that people get caught up in that all the time. I mean, every day people are out there eating ultra processed food and destroying their bodies a lot quicker than Nick ever did. And so let's be a little careful before we.
Copenhagen, the mayor of Copenhagen. The mayor of fucking Copenhagen there.
He's got problems.
The funny thing is, you know what? Yeah, I eat a lot of overprocessed shit. I'm really fat. It's not good for me. I at least admit it. It's not a good thing. I should really stop. I should change my life. I'm not going to sit here saying eating Twinkies is cool. You're just a nerd. There's the Twinkie life. You just don't get it. Triglycerides are your friend.
But you don't have like a health channel, right? Where you're trying to tell everyone else how to do that. That's literally what he's doing here. By the way, you tell me if I'm wrong. I'm always ready to be corrected. His analysis is since I don't even get it. He pled guilty to these things. However, he's not actually guilty. And since he's not actually guilty, or it's going to be a deferred verdict if he goes through this, therefore those things never happened, right? But in his same context, he'll always say the opposite. So I don't understand how he gets away with that kind of commentary. Does that even make sense, what he's saying?
Well, the way it works is, and the way I always try to explain these deferred adjudications or intervention programs, you plead guilty. And then basically the court hits pause. And we put it on pause. Then the court says, I'm going to put you in the program. complete the program and come back. And then if the program and you come back and complete it, the court still keeps it on pause and just ejects the tape and throws it out.
Yeah.
No more case. And that makes a lot of sense instead of, pleading guilty, being found guilty, and then coming back and undoing a conviction. That's not good. Like, that's a pain in the butt. That's very clunky. Also, people now have a conviction on their record, which may or may not disappear, depending on what background checks exist out there.
But he is he's making the point that these allegations never happened. That's that's crazy land, right?
Oh yeah, it is. But but he's a flim flam, man. This is what he does.
That's true. Okay, let's join in.
If you were to go play golf, if Robert Barnes played golf and you asked him how it went, he'd be like, "I scored 14 holes in ones today." KJ says, "Do you guys have a tankless water heater for endless shower calls?" I don't have a tankless. I tried to make all I was trying to make was a joke when he fucking lost it on me. That was the joke. That was the joke I made. Like, you're gonna need a tankless water heater to talk to Noel in the shower forever. And I was just making a joke. I thought he'd fucking laugh, and instead I got read at for like 30 minutes, and people are like, "What were you doing?" And I'm like, "If you watch my glasses, they're flashing because I'm reading the farms and I'm cruising Twitter while he's yelling at me." And I'm like, I'm not going to leave, but I'm not going to pay him attention.
So I'm not aware of this. So this was, I understand the shower comment, but
yeah.
So you were involved in tell us the story.
Oh, there's like a 25-minute, actually it's like 30-minute. Oh, hold on here. If you go to Alyssa Clips and you type in like Nick Rekieta yelling at Sean, oh my God, it's like 30 minutes long. And you were on a stream with him? Yeah, it's me and him. And he's just screaming at me because I had made a joke about Noel in the shower text. And I basically stand in it about the farms. And he goes into it, and Sleazy's right. He's like, "Sean, they say terrible things about my wife, Sean. They say I beat my kids. They say my wife fucks other men." And like, this is November of 23, I think. It's the last time I was on his show.
So they were right.
And, well, I don't think he beats his kids, but I do think he neglected them pretty bad.
Okay. Maybe he doesn't.
I don't think he's got the arm strength or ability to beat his kids. No, I mean, when you look at him, it looks like if you shoved him over, he'd be like the Glass Man in Unbreakable. He's like, ah.
And by the way, I'm all about. Let's go back to here. I'm all about like not mocking people's appearances online. Yeah. Okay. Because we can do stuff to try to improve ourselves, and I've been up and down on that. But there's only so much. But when people like Barnes really start going after people, when I feel like he's got no background for it. I mean, no offense. This is the guy. These are the two guys going after people for in the stuff they say. Yeah. It's just
he calls me Jabba the Hutt with his two chins.
Right. But Viva Fry too. I mean, he's one Canadian. Let's be honest there. And then get a haircut. Okay, let's keep going.
Cocaine in my life, full stop, period. I worked in the practice of law, and the amount of adults who I would have never otherwise suspected who did it blew my freaking mind. The amount of adults who had sex with other people blew my freaking mind. The amount of raging alcoholics, people with serious life issues, blew my freaking mind. So it's not to absolve.
And I also separate that from people.
But they said earlier that he wasn't doing those things, so that's not
causing deliberate harm to people, physically assaulting people, attack, etc. That's a big difference between those two, in my view. And so, I mean, as the state prosecutor acknowledged at sentencing, what Rekieta did was harm himself. He didn't harm anyone else. They said there were no other victims. So he got his family entirely back. In fact, the case was closed in record time for that county. So that shows.
Say that again.
How does he know record time for that county? How do you know?
He just says stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, it probably did help that they had stable housing. They weren't they acted like white trash, but they weren't broke ass welfare white trash living in a fucking trailer they got evicted from. And the kids, God forbid, we put them in the trailer tomorrow with mom and dad. They're going to be out on the street in another 3 days.
Right. Yeah,
yes. Like Nick even brings it up. He's like, the caseworkers were just so impressed when they came to my home. No, they were like, oh my God, how do people like you get your kids taken away? You have everything.
Yes.
You have millions of dollars. You have a roof over your head, multiple cars. We deal with poverty-stricken white trash.
Yes. I have a good
guys. Yeah. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
You know, and that's the thing. Nick's like, oh, they were so impressed. Like, no, they weren't. They were fucking horrified. They were like, they were mocking you in a way. Like, this is pathetic. You're acting like the hillbillies at the trailer park.
Yeah.
And they tried to say it in a way that was pretty obvious, and you didn't get it.
I have a friend who works for child support services, and as an attorney, and he said long ago, he's like, oh, parents should have to get a license to have children, because he just sees the worst all day long as far as like deadbeat moms and dads. And so, that's probably what the social workers are having to deal. They don't see people with, wealth and a family structure and family support going through this kind of stuff. So
that's because people who have a 5,000 square foot home have multiple cars. They don't do this shit because they take care of their family.
Yeah.
Shows you how bogus and.
Sorry, go ahead. Did you more?
I mean, that's the point of like, they never go to this because people who do this stuff generally give a shit about what they're doing, don't put their kids and family at risk, all that stuff. So yes, it helped. Like, they got back in record time because they were able to take care of a lot of the problems, but they didn't have that many problems to start with.
What do you think about this where Sweet Tooth Fairy says he harmed his family?
Oh, he definitely did.
Yeah. Okay. And it's easy for us to sit back here and make those comments. But I think when you put everything in perspective, and I think the problem is you look at the arc where everything he had gone out on the internet preaching himself, and then this comes to fruition and the lies that he's told. I think that makes it more, I don't know about justified, but I don't have a problem in making these comments that I am.
No. Well, I mean, it sets you up. Like, I don't go out there and tell everybody how to live their life. You know, mean, he accepted being he accepted being the trad dad, and I got my kids and I love them and I'm a heckin' good, wholesome guy. And it's just like, I know Nick goes on like, but it's cool. And I'm like, I said this earlier when on my Thursday show. Do you think like his kids are like when they're at high school and they're like, haha, your mom and dad are like fucking cucks and your parents got raided. Nick's kid's not going to lean up against the lock and go, you know what, lames? Your mom and dad weren't cool enough to get raided by the cops. My mom and dad are cool. How about that? Yeah. They're not going to do that. Like, every time they're going to be like, ha, your mom and dad were drug addicts. Ha, the police raided your house. Ha, the county had to take you out of the house. Ha. They're never going to be like, oh, that's so cool.
What's funny is, so I have 4 kids. Okay. And I've been through a divorce. So between that and my current marriage, you have a chance. It's what, the late 30s, early 40s, out there, footloose and having fun. But I had limits and certain things I was never going to, bring people around my kids as an example, until, it was perfectly fine, because I wanted my kids to look back someday and to think of their dad in a way that was respectful, or that I could give them advice and them like going, wait, dad had friends over, spending the night a lot. Yeah. That never happened, because your kids are still your priority. And I think when drugs get in the mix, I see this all the time, but the priorities just get out of whack. So
the priority become getting more drugs. Oh, no, I agree. And I think that's important because these kids are going to remember that shit.
Yeah, that's
They're
sad.
Gonna, like, it's one thing if the agency comes to your house, but the sheriff's deputies show up, and like, it wasn't the SWAT team, but they're wearing plate carriers. I guarantee a couple of them had rifles. They probably had flashlights on in there. I mean, imagine like some of these kids living in, they live in Beaver Cleaverville. And they, one of them woke up to the sheriff's deputies with fucking guns in their house. Like,
well, remember, this was my complaint at the time. Now, I'd like to see body cam to like confirm everything, but they pull Nick over on the side of the road and they say, hey, can you give us the access to the house or whatnot?
Yes.
We have a warrant. And he's like, no. And they're like, please. And they end up breaking the door in. Okay.
Well, there's some pictures of it afterwards. Like
it didn't get opened, right?
Well, it didn't get open, but like, here's the thing. It wasn't like it was Delta Force doing like a dynamic entry where like they slapped a breaching charge on the door and they blew it off its hinges inside. They took the ram and like popped it open.
Well, okay. My point is, it wasn't like the door. I mean, I don't know what you would do in that situation, but
if I was the cops,
no, if you were Nick,
I understand him not wanting to do it. Like, don't let him have it, but they're going in, so you can.
Okay,
fine,
so
let
that
him hit your
let's
door.
back up here in my reasoning, which is okay. I'm thinking of a few things. One, don't go in, but they have a warrant. They're going to go in regardless. Do I want the trauma of even a thing to just pop the door, or to actually allow them to just come in? They're going to come in there anyway.
Yes.
I don't know. Maybe I'm not a good libertarian for that, but I'm thinking of my kids, and they're going to have an experience.
Yeah, because like they said, we had to tell the kids and it was one of Nick's littlest kids, get back from the door, sweetie. We got to open the door. And this kid's probably confused because it's officer friendly, Officer Joe.
Right.
If he's supposed to be the good guy. Well, this good guy wants in your house and your mom's saying, no, don't let him in. And, weird mommy April's here too. And she's saying, no, don't let him in. And the toilet's flushing throughout the house.
But it wasn't because they didn't get rid of the drugs, or maybe they got rid of a lot, but
no,
not
they
enough.
did. I don't think they did. I'm just joking about the toilet part. But I'm sure that, it's everybody's saying, no, don't let him in. And I'm sure that kid was, I mean, I think it's better if Nick would have just done that. But I also get, you don't give an inch. And
right.
I get it.
I get it too. I've told my kids, you don't trust the cops or whatever. So anyway,
false. All the accusations against him concerning his kids were.
See,
it was meant to go at because he takes one of his greatest prides in all the ridiculous amount of stuff he does for his kids. I mean, literally goes to every sporting event, takes them at all these homeschooling events. I mean, he's more actively promoting his interest of his kids.
They do coke with him
than anybody I know, to be honest. As someone who did homeschool kids for
my mom and dad did
2 years,
that too.
right.
And my mom and dad took us everywhere too. But you know what my mom and dad would say? That's the bare fucking minimum you're supposed to do. That's like you're being a doctor. You showed up every day. Okay, it's like.
Yeah, to be a good, a decent parent, it's not a lot. I mean, you just don't be a piece of shit, and it's easy.
Yeah, but I mean, just showing up every day is half the battle. But that's not for some people it might be impressive, but it's there's so much more you could do. I drove my kids. Okay, did you make them feel loved? Were you supporting them, actually cheering them on, challenging them, and doing it? Well, no, I drove them everywhere. It's
wasn't there either? I'm trying to remember when it was. Nick was documenting how many hours a day he's on the road with the kids.
Yeah.
And it's okay, so you have 5 kids. I'm sorry, I have 4. My wife and I never were going to same events at the same time. It's just you're spread thin. So
yeah,
how incredibly difficult that is.
Shit happens.
Least of all, if I got five of them, and I'm running around to literally every single event they do. And I'm even teaching other homeschool kids in the process while trying to run a full story business.
He's not teaching them anymore. They kicked him out of the
He put himself
homeschool.
under a little bit too much stress. I think.
They kicked him out of the
those allegations
homeschool
are false.
many moons ago.
Yeah, so he's not doing well. And I don't know what the status is.
Here's been the outcome. The outcome is all charges against him, other than a 3rd-degree drug charge, have been dismissed. So a lot of the gun charges dismissed. All the charges concerning kids dismissed. They wouldn't dismiss those charges unless there was not a factual basis to do so.
That's
Number
not
2,
true. That's not
he is not serving any time.
That is not true at all. That is not true at all. Shit gets dismissed all the time to sweeten the pot.
5-year probation was, I think, in basically of lessening these other, reducing these others, and then you get 5 years probation. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, the idea, you wouldn't dismiss something you had legal grounds to prosecute? Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
I got a felony of up to 15 years in prison, and I'm gonna you want me to dismiss the 180-day, misdemeanor? Cool, fine, whatever. I got the multi-year felony. That is not at all
But this doesn't make sense because he admits to the drugs.
Yeah.
The guns were in the house.
Yes.
Kids were. I mean, they didn't go overboard with charging. I mean, look at Karen Reed. I think it's over the top. But this is right in line with 3 things that happened that were all there and seem logical. And it's yeah, but here you are. I don't think you're gonna, reoffend. Let's get this shit taken care of. So it's ridiculous comment.
What he was given is what's called a deferred sentence, a stayed sentence. It's known as diversion or deferment in most jurisdictions. They stay the adjudication is the way they do it, the mechanism they do so in Minnesota. What does that mean? It means in 5 years, let's say he complies with everything, all charges are dismissed. He's not even a felon. He doesn't lose gun rights, voting rights, any of it. And he's not serving any time in jail. The jail is if he doesn't comply with probation, then he can end up going to jail. That's not going to happen. He will not serve another.
I would push back on. He's lost his gun rights until he finishes 5 years.
Well, because when you're on probation, you have no rights.
Well, it was in the sentencing. He doesn't get him.
Yeah. Well, I had a guy once. He wanted to start doing archery with his son, and he had bought a bow. And we had to go talk to the probation department, and the probation department's like, I kind of want to, but I'm not sure. We had to file a motion with the court saying, hey, judge, can he do it? And I brought in pictures of here's his bow. Here's what he's going to do with it. He's going to do archery leagues with it. It was a nice compound bow. You know, he had been working at his new job. He'd been saving money. And, you know, he planned on eventually maybe hunting with it. And the judge had to sit there, you know, and he's like, yeah, you know what? That's okay. He's like, just a compound bow. But he's like, you can't buy a crossbow. You know, like, you know, but yeah, like generally speaking, like no weapons. So like I've heard of I've heard of cases where guys are on probation and like they had a BB gun and the probation officer took it. He's like, no weapons means no weapons. Like, so yeah, it's not a surprise at all.
Well, I think the sentencing actually says no guns. So
yeah,
it's specific.
I'm just saying though, but like no weapons too, though. I mean,
yeah.
Let's say I want a sword or a spear
or knife. I don't know.
Yeah, a knife.
What do you think is going to happen? I'm not going to play anymore. I think we're done with this. I've gone unless you really want to, but I think there's not much.
No,
Barnes and Viva. I mean, they're grifters in my sense, which is perfectly fine. But I think they do it in a disingenuous way.
Well, but also, I mean, they're the guys behind Rumble, and they pimped Nick, so they kind of you got to ride with the brand. Like I respect that part of the hustle.
I did hear he lost his, or he didn't get it renewed, or whatever. Well, he has no Rumble.
The moment he had his Rumble contract, he said, "Hey guys, don't do Rumbles," because the way the Rumble contract, from what I understand, was, because I think Nick even mentioned it, he gets to keep all of his local stuff, but he had to pay them their cut on Rumble. So he said, "Don't super chat me, just put all your money in local." So he basically kind of like Jewed him out of everything from the start, and then from there he quit showing up and quit doing shows. And on top of that, and they had already paid the money up front. So it's like the idea that it was ever coming back, it was never coming back. Like he had shit all over that by the end of 2023. So like this idea where he's now like, yeah, me getting arrested ruined the Rumble contract. No, you basically not completing the contract even 50%. Oh, look, there's a Kit Kat.
Yeah, this is our cat.
What's the cat's name?
Luna.
Luna. Aw.
We have 3 dogs and
she can't
10
hear
chickens.
me. Is she hiding right now from the dogs?
No, she gets they all get along. Like her and we have 3 dogs, small, medium, and large, and the small dog and her sleep together. They're like best friends. Yeah,
oh,
so it's good. We're I don't know how we get along with everybody, but
it's a little conflict house.
It is. The oldest dog, the biggest dog too. She's lost. We had to cut her arm off, her front leg.
Oh,
yeah, cosmetic reasons. Just no, it was cancer. So, but yeah, I know you have a dog, so.
Yeah, no, I know, but that's good to get taken care of it. Make him tripod it out.
Right, she's fine. So.
Yeah, no, they dogs are tough. Dogs are tough, but no, just as God, where were we going? Where were we going with this before you?
I was kind of gonna wonder about the predictions for what you thought of his channel and him.
I mean,
his case.
Yeah, I mean, like for his channel, I don't know. I mean, he says he's like, I'm gonna do it out of spite, and it's like, all right, well, we'll see where that goes. But yeah, like his Rumble thing, he lit that on fire. He only did like half the contract in reality, and he got, there's no way they're like, I don't imagine anybody's ever gonna want to work with him again, knowing he got paid however much, and then only did like, and the farms, I will say, did a great job of cataloging how much time he actually did, but he barely performed on his contract. Like Rumble could have sued him for breach of contract that they wanted to, but they give him a couple, he probably got a couple $100,000 versus Russell Brand getting 20 million. I'm sure they just wrote that off as a loss and moved on.
What do you think about so I see there's a lot of like watching trials and stuff now. Kurt's been doing them, other people are doing them. I don't know that that maybe I'm wrong, but I didn't know even at the time that Nick was so inventive and different that I had to watch him stream trials or his law stuff. I know people really liked him, but what's your thought on him?
I mean, he was great because he could be kind of like the color commentary guy while the rest of us are doing the play-by-play. So it worked out. I mean, at the time it was working. But then the rest of us are like, well, fuck, we can do this too. This ain't that fucking hard. And I could be funny, and I could do the color commentary and the play-by-play by myself. Or, we could do it in smaller amounts. Like, we all figured out how we could do this. So, I mean, like, but there's other people. Like, Emily Baker was she was already, like, on her way to the stars by that point. Like, Emily Baker is out of this world as far as success is going. Nate was already Nate had already made his bones before he even came around to Nick. Kurt had already been doing stuff before Nick. Like, it wasn't, I made you. It's like, I don't really know. And it's like, okay, Nick, people like racist jokes more than legal analysis.
Well,
that's why I could do both.
Subscribe to this show, please, because
Yes.
Anyway.
But I just, he doesn't do anything now that nobody else can do. And people are realizing, I think, wow, people could, people who have been there, done that, and actually got the t-shirt can say, like, yes, I've been in this situation before. Like, I've crashed and burned, or I've lit a witness on fire, or here's what they're trying to, like, and he can't do any of that. And he just go, this guy looks fat on the stand, or he black. And it's like, okay, but I could do that too. I could do that too while I'm talking about it.
I just don't trust women in general, so
yes.
I don't know.
I that's it though. I really appreciate Emily Baker's view on things. She's actually pretty good.
Yeah, that's been fine.
So,
sorry, this cat's getting here.
No, that's what cats do, man. Oh, shove your cat
She's
off.
a bit of a klutz too.
Yeah. Stabby says, "Prove how libertarian you are." Say the N word.
Just not in the show.
Nick.
Nick. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, that's the N word there. Okay, so Sean, I think we're done with this. Any other things you want to wrap a bow on for this Nick our stuff? Because I'm not gonna be watching his stuff. I think I'm done. And just go
until something, God forbid, it happens.
Right. I don't want it to.
Probation is very hard. It's you've got to do 5 years of this. And like recovery is not easy. Recovery is never, you dealt with clients. It's never a straight line. It's got a bunch of ups and downs. Sometimes it's got like straight cratering.
Yeah.
And then you bounce back and then crater again. Bounce back, crater again. And then you're going along for a couple years. Great. Oh, I shouldn't have my hand like this, but whatever. You're going along.
I'm fixing my camera.
Yeah. You're going along, and you got years of flying high, and then all of a sudden, bam, crater again. And then you like, it's never going to be it's going to be tough. Most people really don't ever get a hold of it at the end of the day. I mean, I hope Nick can come back and say, haha, fat man, that's what happens. I fixed it. I hope he can. The odds are I don't think he will. He's probably going to crash and burn. He seems like he hasn't learned anything. Then there's also this stuff where he messed with Aaron's Google account and was accessing computer stuff. Like, that's looming out there. Maybe he gets slapped up for computer access crimes. I don't know. I mean, who knows what happens?
How would that affect his probation?
I would argue it shouldn't, because that was it's not new conduct.
Yeah.
It was conduct happening while this case was pending. So I would argue that's not new criminal conduct. It's just a new charge. But the way I've always seen courts handle new conduct is you've been sentenced, put on probation, bam, here's the line. And then from going forward, do you have new criminal activity? If it's stuff from the past, like let's say you had a drug case, but you had a bunch of other drug cases and the lab took forever. It wouldn't be fair to, like, you're on probation and then something from a year before pings and now they have results and they're like, oh, well, you violated probation. It's like, but you didn't. Yeah. It's just the system takes a while. And this happens to people. You got a bunch of criminal charges and like indictments take a while to catch up. So you pled out and then like, oh yeah, here's another charge. And you're like, okay, let's hold off for like 3 months and let's collect everything that's out there and then settle it all, because otherwise sometimes it just keeps dripping.
So is it usually actions from the date of sentencing forward, or
that's generally how you should look at it.
Okay.
That's generally how you should look at it.
There you go, people. That's your free legal advice for the for the day. Acts before you get sentenced. So if you're going to get sentenced, maybe throw on a few things real quick. Knock over minimum security 711.
If the court learns about you committing acts before you're sentenced, that's not a good way to do it.
Okay. Don't take legal advice on this from me, people. Take it from Sean. Yeah. Any last things? By the way, I always appreciate you coming on. I really enjoy your show. By the way, I do things where I'm doing stuff around the house and, on the weekends or whenever, your show is all the time. Mm-hmm. And I'm just listening and you make me laugh. you do have a good sense of humor. It's subtle at times. Sometimes it's right in your face, but I really appreciate that. So everybody, if you're probably here because of Sean, and if so, subscribe to my channel. But and then you'll delete that after a while. My subs come like a sine wave.
Yeah.
But if you don't know about Sean, definitely go to his stuff and check it out, please.
Yeah. And so we got other stuff coming up, like Ethan Klein's defamation lawsuit that he had against one of the organizers of Triller came back.
Okay.
It looks like he's in a little bit of hot water. He couldn't get his the slap failed, so he's in trouble. Then
what
also
state is that in?
California.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah. Then there's also, there's a bunch of other stuff out there. Sig Sauer is apparently decided to light themselves on fire with how they handle things going forward. I don't know if you know about they made a handgun a couple of years ago that apparently goes off on its own. And they've now released a thing saying our guns are great. Then they released something last week saying, well, you should always carry your guns without a round in the chamber. And it's like, there's a bunch of stuff coming up. Then the other thing I'm going to get to, going back to it as things go on here, is the fuera situations down with the illegals that are getting deported.
Yeah.
Because I learned that's what the word means. Afuera means out.
Oh, interesting.
And I'm actually kind of curious what your take on this whole thing is. I don't know if you've really been following it all. With
a little bit, not enough. It's something I'm like, I want to push into this because I know I will probably be odds with some conservatives. For usually different reasons, right? I'm not a lefty, and I hate them. And then, but I hate the way the right uses things, and they're hypocritical. Just a few months ago, they were on the other side of it. So that always bothers me. And I try to be more down the middle of. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I think it's very interesting. One of the biggest things, they keep on screaming about this one guy who's down in El Salvador. He's like, they're bring him home. They messed up the order. It's like, okay, we'll bring him back. And then it's like, you still go home. So it's like, bye. It's like, and I think it's funny because we do that. And then is everybody going to go, well, shucks, the law was followed. That's done. No, everybody in the left's going to lose their mind. We deported this heckin' wholesome, Salvadoran guy or Venezuelan guy. So that's why I think it's very funny to see people complain about it. It's like, so if we brought him back and had the hearing and still sent him, you're going to be shitting your pants regardless of what we do.
Yeah, it's like a lot. This is the problem I'm having with and we'll take off here in a second. But with a lot of the immigration stuff is there's so many valid reasons to be deporting numerous people, but then the administration decides that they're going to and because I think it's not correctly done, go after people that have differing points of view on a foreign country, and then I'm just like, come on. If by the way.
Yeah.
Don't get me started. But if you took the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism and just
we talked about this. Everything is anti-Semitism. I'm a purveyor of anti-Semitism based on that.
Okay.
And
if you took that,
I agree.
If you took that, this is my what I want to do, Sean, and I'm too busy doing other things. Take that definition and change all the words Israel or Jew to BLM and black or trans, and then you presented it to a Ben Shapiro. He would be like, "This is outrageous."
Well, he'd say "Oy vey."
But so no, I'm equal purveyor on all that.
Yeah,
anyway.
And that's where when my chat gets really mad because I think I reflexively hate Israel. I don't mind getting rid of these people if they're out students disrupting protests and they had that one guy stuck in the building as basically a hostage and they had to negotiate for him out. Sorry, those guys got to go home. I just if we're doing things for people, the primary objective, cui bono, who benefits first and foremost, should always be the United States of America. If it's any other country, I have concerns. So if any other country's benefiting is the nation of Israel, I want to stop and go, wait, why? Why are we not getting the best bargain here? They could benefit secondarily. I'm cool with that. Fine, whatever. We can have similar interests, but the rule number one is we should always be looking out for number one.
Exactly. And it needs to be fair across the board on all this.
Yes,
someone made the argument that if the last administration had done this kind of thing, they could have literally deported Jordan Peterson and his daughter for their political views, if that's really what you're taking.
Yeah, and you know what though? I mean, we're I guess it's I guess show us that you guys aren't this is where it's like, okay, so you're either admitting we aren't going to be big pieces of shit when we get power back, or we will be big pieces of shit.
Yeah.
So I love using that as the argument instead. It's like, so are you telling me you're going to abuse the system to get back at us, or are you going to be better than us?
Right.
And then they get really mad and quiet because they don't want to admit, like, well, yeah, we're going to fuck you back. It's like, okay, so you're no better than me.
And I would appreciate that commentary, which is, yeah, I'm going to, I do have friends that have left kind of the libertarian side that are more, I don't know what you call them anymore, but they are definitely along the lines of you get in and you exude power. Okay,
Yes, well,
fine. But you also have to, at least you're honest about it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's about running up the score the best you can and then hope you can hold on as long as possible.
Yeah, which is, I think, a dangerous proposition.
I do too, but I think that's kind of like the die's been cast.
Mm-hmm.
We're not to the point, like, it's to the point of, like these, like Sam Hyde said, these people want to kill you and laugh about it. So it's like you're Achilles said there are no accords between lions and men. Like, there is no peace. Like, it's the game's afoot. And I hate to say that because that means we're going to be in a bad place, but the game is afoot.
Mutually assured destruction. Maybe that's the only way out of this.
Yes.
Okay, everybody, love Sean. Go watch. Are you going to do a model stream later?
Yeah,
or
we're going to do some models in a little bit, probably about 10 minutes.
Okay, everybody go over there and check out Sean. I'm going to do a ridiculous outro. And so I appreciate everybody coming in tonight and the super chats and whatnot. Always love you having Sean on. Appreciate you coming. Say goodbye, Sean.
Great time. Bye.
Goodbye,
Okay, I'm leaving now, guys.
But she's back.
And now.
Tyler, if you had any clout about you, if you had any knowledge of the real world of what happens, we walk into Tim Catt's studio, immediately there's 4 Jewish lawyers.
King of the Druids!
That's all we needed. A Jewish princess.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't expect the normies like Tyler to understand these kind of things. He's just a podunk lawyer somewhere in rural California. He's an idiot, really.
Takes a tough man to make a tender forecast, Nick. And I guess that's me. Keep fucking that chicken.
This guy's, I wouldn't say he's full of shit, but I'd say he's stupid. Whatever, if you're in the comments, if you're in the chat now, I wouldn't pay attention to anything he says anyway. But
more or less, eat shit and die.
Don't ever come to Top Lobster. He will end you. Do you see what he just did to Tyler? Just fucking challenge this
Tyler's done.
Top is a maniac.
He can't even reply right now because he's crippled.
He's got nothing to say.
What are you talking about? I didn't say that. Why don't you argue with something I said, you dumb bastard?